In this repair video, we're gonna be working on an LG 5K monitor, a motherboard that was mailed over to us for a bad Thunderbolt connector. That's one of the major issues with LG monitors. I have countless number of videos on our channel going over LG 4K or 5K monitors. And I mentioned in many of the videos, working on this monitor is a 50-50 chance. The thing is, a lot of times we remove the connector and we find that we have a lot of damaged pads on the board. Those pads are extremely close to each other. Running wires is possible, but very difficult, especially when we have 10 ripped pads, 15 ripped pads. If we do discover that we have a lot of ripped pads, we deem it a no fix and we tell the customer it's not a practical repair. Or if we have few broken pads, we fix it, we solder a new connector and we mail it back to the customer. Customer mailed over the motherboard only, and he said when he moves the cable, the picture comes on and off. Now, LG monitors are one of those devices that we get in on daily basis. Maybe I can show you. Let me pull up my phone and let me show you a list of LG monitors that we need to work on. And today also, we got almost 10 fobs to work on. This one, I do not want to show any names because people are going to start to complain. We have this Mercedes-Benz key fob. We have this Mercedes-Benz key fob. We have this one here. We have this one here. It's like an influx of Benz key fobs. I already fixed this one. And we also have some on the bench here. But let me show you the LG monitors, the stuff that we need to get done. We have 1, 2, 3, and the motherboard I'm working on 4. Before we start the video, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is a China Shenzhen-based PCB manufacturer and printed circuit board assembler with more than a decade in the field of PCB prototype and fabrication. They offer a wide variety of services, including 3D printing, CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, and much more. PCBWay is committed to meeting all your PCB needs. They offer quality, on-time delivery, and competitive pricing. 1 to 2 layer boards starts at $5 with 24 hours turnaround. Get an instant quote by visiting PCBWay.com or click on the link below and make sure to check them out. Right, so the first thing we need to do, I developed a pattern working on those motherboards. I work on them almost twice or 3 times a week. We're gonna remove the plate and we are concerned with this last connector, if the camera can focus. What I do also is I flip the board and I desolder this connector from the back. I heat it up from the back and I do not want to melt that connector. This connector is a bit too far, so we do not remove it, but I do desolder this connector, apply heat from the back in order to desolder and resolder this connector. So we're going to completely desolder this and we're going to solder a new one. I can tell that we have, maybe the connector is a bit bent from here. But the customer did mention that when he bends the cable left and right, picture comes and goes. Sometimes it does not come at all. So hopefully, the bending part I do not like, because when you force the cable up and down, you're forcing the connector to pull up and down and likely damaging pads under it. Hopefully that's not the case here, but we'll see. So that's the plate right here. A big thermal pad. And look at this. Look at this. As soon as I removed that plate, the connector fell right off. Wow. Look at this. We have this, we have this, and we have this, and the customer cannot use those 3 ports to power on the monitor. It has to be this one here. No way. No way. Look at how close to each other those pads are. How many do we have missing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wow. What should we do? I mean, it's a lot of work restoring the wires, especially when those wires are so close to each other. Do not wiggle the cable left and right, up and down. All you are doing is forcing that connector to pull off the board and in the process, break the pads. I mean, the problem is not a connection issue between the cable and the connector. The problem is a connector issue with the motherboard. Do not move that cable. Look at this. I'm almost 50% tempted to say no to this repair. But for the sake of this video, let's go ahead and do it. What we're gonna have to do is cut the traces, and we're gonna run wires. Let's use the anti-glare light. And now everything is, wow. It's like a day and night difference. Whatever stuff I'm using for this repair, including this amazing microscope, the anti-glare light, the ring light, original Amtech Flux, tweezers, hot air stations, soldering stations, thermal cameras, you can buy everything off our site. Just log into NorthridgeFix.com, click on shop, add to cart, checkout, pay. And we almost always ship out same day. If you have ordered from us before, you know how fast we ship. You can leave it down in the comments. Even the anchor points. How did that connector break when it's connected to 4 strong anchor points? Because of the amount of pressure the customer put on that connector. Just look at the quality on this NorthridgeFix microscope and tell me it's not amazing. So for this repair, I'm using the NF mini pen with the knife tip. But any of the tips included with the NF mini pen, whether it's the conical, the knife, or the bent, will work. That's what I currently have on the NF mini pen. I'm trying to prep those pads as gently as possible because those pads may be weak. I'm trying to avoid drag soldering. If we lose any more pads, I'm not working on this device. I just grabbed a new NorthridgeFix brush because this one is worn out. I've been using it for the past couple of months, and this is a new one. You'll see the difference under the microscope. Okay, so that's the brush that we sell. I just want to show you what a worn out brush looks like this one here. And the new one looks like this. So that's when you know that you need a new brush. You see how the bristles nice and straight, whereas the other brush, the bristles, look at the way they look. I use and abuse this brush every single day. So now it should be safe to apply UV mask. I mean, when I say safe, I mean any residue of flux under the UV mask may prevent the UV mask from sticking. So I clean the board as much as possible without affecting the wires that we just soldered. Very tough job. Right now I'm zoomed in a lot. If I zoom out, and that's a microscope, look at the zoom out. You cannot work on the pads like this. We have to zoom in because the pads are crazy close. Very, very close. A lot closer than you think. The wire is 0.1 millimeters. And that's the distance between the pads. About 0.1, 0.15 millimeters. So we are done restoring the traces. Tough job, but someone has to do it. If it was 9 traces, I would have skipped. 8. Now what I want to do is I want to remove this connector here because we're going to heat up from the back to solder the connector from the front. We do not want to burn this connector. And to remove this connector, what do? Should we heat up from the back or should we apply hot air on the connector? We cannot heat up from the back because we soldered all the wires unless we want to damage those wires again. So what we're going to do is use low melt solder. Low melt solder is magic. I always mention it. Right, and the connector is out. Let's put it on the side. We do not want to leave low melt solder on the board, and we do not solder a connector using low melt solder because low melt melts at a very low temperature and it's brittle. It's not used to solder components or connectors. You use it to desolder. So we're gonna apply hot air from the back to solder the connector from the front. Some people ask, newbies, how come when you apply hot air from back of the board, those components will not melt and fall off? It's because of something called surface tension. And now we're gonna grab a connector, and I wanna change my nozzle on the hot air station because I have the thin one, the smaller one. I wanna have more heat transfer, so we have to use the big nozzle. I did a lot of things today and my bench is out of control. The thing is, I do not have time to clean in between, so I wait until end of the day or until the next day if I'm too tired. Now what we're gonna do is extend the microscope beyond the bench. So I'm gonna have the board sticking out of the bench. Let's say that's the bench. The board is gonna be sticking out, and I'm gonna point hot air down from the bottom to solder the connector from the top. Now we did not clean the holes, and we do not have to. Once we start applying hot air, whatever tiny bit of solder is left inside the holes are gonna melt. Solder is gonna melt, and then we can solder the connector. So that's a brand new connector with a cap on top, so we can send the motherboard back to the customer in a better than factory condition. Okay, so the connector is inside the holes. Now what I want to do is I want to press down on the connector. Keep applying hot air. Okay, the connector is moving, that's good. And we're gonna let go. And my finger is touching the board, and the board is burning hot. Burned finger, what can you do? Right, and now we can let go. We are done. Let's take a look at the connector and look at how nice and flush that connector is. The pins are solid. Now, if a pin is connected to a wire, the pin may move with the wire. But right now, as we have it, I'm unable to test every pin under the connector. The connector is soldered on nicely, but I cannot test every pin under the connector. Big Boss already left for the day. Customer only mailed over the motherboard. But what I'm gonna ask Big Boss to do tomorrow is open up an LG monitor that we have in the shop here, a 5K LG monitor, install the motherboard, test it, and see if it works. If yes, great, we're gonna invoice the customer full price and mail it back to him. If not, then there's nothing more I can do beyond what I did now. We'll invoice him for a bench fee, return shipping, and mail it back to him. Unless the customer does not want the monitor, then we can recycle it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. Leave it down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll do something else in the next video. All we need to do is put back the connector on back of the board,